and it might be something you could try out. And then
Yeah.
and you know, use that as, you know, while you're studying hypertext, be using a hypertext tool to do that. So, hey, Frode.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
Hello.
Driving down from North London was really horrendous today, so
Yeah.
I apologize. Let me just see if anyone has sent any messages about, no, hang on. David, I saw that you had come in, but no notification from you, Gunter. That was interesting.
Oh, weird.
Okay, yeah, good, that's it. Just you guys. How are you both doing?
Very well, from Gloucester, Massachusetts.
That's a nice area.
Yeah, do you know it?
A little bit.
Yeah, Cape Ann.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Well, I just wanted to check in real briefly. I don't know if you had an agenda, but I had written you a long time ago about a project that I thought, oh, this would be ideal if Frode wanted to get involved with this. So I'll just mention it, and if you're interested in learning more, I will send you the pilot. I did a pilot of what I'm going to describe to you, if I may. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was, this goes way back to probably 71, 72. You were just a little boy, an infant almost. And I was a undergraduate at Washington University in St. Louis. And me and a friend of mine, graduate student, Victor, well, basically I got the idea that, gee, I have these professors that I admire so much, their knowledge and so forth. I wonder what books did they read that helped them to become the people they are today. And that led to a project I called the Book Project. And essentially I sent out 1,500 letters to, this was a pilot, to faculty around the country, I think at about 8 or 9 different universities, asking them, what books have you read in the course of your personal development that influenced who you are today? And I sent, each envelope had 5 file cards. And I said, please, you know, write a response that fits on the file card. You can use the back and the front, but I wanted to keep it not too long. And 2 very interesting results. One was that I got about a 10% return, which is pretty good for a survey like that, right? So it was a topic that a lot of people were interested in. Of the 150 times, you know, probably average of 4. So I had, you know, 800 or 900 of these things, I forget. There were only about 60 where people actually answered the question. What they tended to do was just, and this reflects how conditioned our educational system, they started talking about what the book was about, not how it influenced them. It was very interesting in and of itself, right? But the people that wrote from a personal perspective had very, very powerful things to say. I mean, I was very depressed and I was even suicidal. And then my professor said, read The Myth of Sisyphus. And, you know, it made me see the world in a new way, or, you know, and I have all, I took those results, and my uncle is a somewhat, well, was a very accomplished artist, New York artist. He did some illustrations, and I put together this little booklet. And the idea was to find out, we all assume that books influence personal growth and development, but let's find out which books, under which conditions, from people who are accomplished in some way, right? Whether they're university people, professionals, and so forth. And the idea was, from the pilot, to do a huge study of this topic. And now with the internet, you can imagine how you could do a big crowdsourcing type version of this. We make it all online. And so when I saw your book, Future of the Book Project, I thought, well, here's whatever it is, 300 people who are also already in sort of leaders, And you could do some kind of a pyramid scheme, right? Where each person contacts 5 other people and so forth and so on. And you could start to build very rapidly a website that was collecting. And I actually designed this thing with a kind of a jurying function. So, you know, you don't just get to post your stuff. It has to sort of pass muster because you'll get a lot of people saying what's in the book. We have plenty of criticisms of of Dostoevsky, but what was in Crime and Punishment that affected who you are as a person and so forth. At any rate, if you're interested, I'll send you, I have a digital copy of this little book project thing that I did, and you'll see that the little snippets that people wrote, some of them are very compelling. There's a few people who are like world famous that happen to just fall into my subsample, and it's always just been something that I've thought about. Wow, it would be very worthwhile doing, but it would take somebody like you that already has contacts and also the whole way you design your user interfaces. It would have to really be elegant and simple to get, and you could imagine this thing sort of taking off, and before you know it, you could have 20 or 30,000 inputs on different, and people could go and look at, I wonder what books influenced this person or that person that I admire, or I wonder, I read this book, who else read it, and how did it affect them, and so forth. It could be quite interesting. There have been some other, I did a whole extensive study of books about books, and they go back to the 1700s, and there have been some attempts, like somebody did a survey of Harvard faculty, but to get people, I'm almost done here, I'm not getting wordy here, but to really focus on the personal development part of it, the sort of the intimate relationship between people and their books in this kind of systematic way, and keeping the website up so people can continue to contribute might actually be a wonderful thing.
Sounds like a cool project, but it's quite far outside kind of my remit, and the people who have contributed to the book have to be very careful. They just asking them a couple of times to check over their own stuff, most people get a little irked.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That is all I will do.
Yeah.
Some are more involved, but I'm not really a kind of a gathering person like that. But it sounds like a cool project. I'd like to see something like that happen.
Well, I'll send it to you just to look at it for your own edification, but I just wanted to run by the idea to see if it appealed to you, but it was a long shot. So that's all. I'm done. I'm going to check out shortly, but I wanted to see who else just joined and hear a little bit about.
Yeah, Dirk and Gunther, I don't know if you know each other.
No, not yet.
Maybe, today is actually, the Monday and Friday chats are supposed to be a little bit different. Today is supposed to be a little bit more about visual meta, but there isn't that much there yet. So, we can talk more open things, but what I really want to try to focus on is how things interrelate with the different systems. And, we're all 4 doing very different systems there.
Can you define visual meta?
Yes, I can define visual meta. Visual meta is stuff. Okay, actually, before I explain it, so let me just. So a PDF document hardly ever has useful meta, right? I joined the the PDF Association to find out how to add the meta to a PDF file, and they said, no, you don't do it like this. You have to put it in here. And this was really convoluted. On a Mac, you can do get info and you can type some stuff. That isn't really done. But a normal book on one of the first pages has this stuff, right?
Yep.
So all visual meta is essentially that stuff on the last page. And the formatting is inside what is basically BibTeX. So a BibTeX citation, so it says title equals, authors equal, and so on. So when you open this in a PDF reader that is visual meta aware, it searches for @visual meta, which is the tag to show that visual meta is there, and parses it. So that means that if you copy text from that PDF and paste it into a word processor, it will paste as a citation, not just as plain text. It
Okay.
also allows you to put the formatting in so it can show where all the headings are. So you can do views based on that. And you can also put rich information in there to explain how, what things are in the documents. So it can be used for many different ways. But the reason it's visual and not in the file hidden away somewhere is for archivability. As long as PDF is somehow viewable in the future, this is, if the normal content of the PDF is viewable, so is this.
So viewable is really another way to say it. The only reason is I asked for a definition is because I do visual stuff with text. So I was hoping that it would be depiction, but it sounds like what it is more, at least from my understanding, to make visible parts of the PDF, the book.
It's not to make visible. It is, I mean, like HTML, everything is hidden. The markup is not shown unless you view it in a text editor, right? But so the point is, I come from, as you know, a very rich interaction perspective. Doug Engelbart's views, jumping, all these criteria. I think that's crucial. But I'm also fully aware that a lot of the documents I research within even hypertext, I can't properly find online. They are in degraded styles. And even when I download a document now from ACM, A, it won't have the meta information, and B, the document itself, let's say it's an entry from a journal, an article from a journal, it won't even tell me the date. It's not there anywhere. So I have to use Reference Manager, which uses magic to go online and get this secret stuff. I find it quite obscene. You have to do it like this. Hang on one second, Emily. Sorry, a family's finally coming in from the car. It's a bit of a horrendous journey. So the reason for this, I spent the first year or two of my PhD saying, PDF awful. And then I, for my PhD, had to do the research, and PDF is absolutely fantastic for its intended use, which is contracts and things that shouldn't change. And then, of course, we have the issue of, you know, my philosophy is all about liquid information. But if you have liquid information like in a Google Doc, then you instantly have the issue of versioning and of explaining what is. So there was a development over a summer 2 years ago where I was looking at JATS, which is another kind of markup system. And then I realized, first of all, that if you paste a DOI into my word processor, I already decided that that should be resolved at the point of pasting. So it doesn't paste as a number, it pastes as a full citation. So combine that with having the beginning of a book thing, at the end I realized, when you read a digital document, if it's 1,000 pages, who cares? Right? Pictures and video today is so huge. So with documents, we shouldn't really worry, but put it at the back. The one for the Future of Text book is really tiny type and it's 2 pages long. You know, but that's just a stylistic choice. But the whole thing is, you can print it out, scan it again, do OCR, and you've lost no rich information. It's all there.
So that's visual. Not hidden in markup, but etchable in stone.
Yeah, I guess a more appropriate name would be meta on the same level as the content. But that just doesn't sound so cool.
So can you just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do?
Oh, sure. Hi, David.
Hi.
I guess I'm from, gosh, I synchronize captions in YouTube 10 times more precisely in a product that could be called Vocal Text. It's kind of neat. You can tap along and synchronize it. It's good for language acquisition and augmenting the comprehensibility of speech. It's a human-driven thing that's an interactive loop with AI in theory. I haven't been able to sell this. I haven't really tried. Anyway, the future of text as a visual, audible even tactile experience.
Hmm.
I call it super hypertext at this point because it's like hypertext, it links, but it's more granular because I can synchronize syllables, I can synchronize phrases with context, parts of speech, lots of different things are possible. I don't think it's quite what Ted wanted to do with hypertext. It may be another step, or it might be bogus. Who knows? Need some money to build it.
Right.
I built a bunch of prototypes. That's what's happening.
Oh, very cool. All right. Well, thank you. And where are you located?
Right now, Denver.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Are you getting smoky air out there?
Yeah, it's all kind of terrifying. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I swam down there, and the reef died last year.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of Frode in your book, somebody said there is no future of text because we will burn all the paper or something.
That's a poster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an artist, Amos. He said, yeah, a bit depressing.
Totally.
But
Well, I just, as a former family systems therapist or researcher rather, the role of crisis in change. So my prediction, you heard it here, when things get bad enough, and it hasn't quite gotten there yet, but we're headed in the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think there's a possibility of everybody coming together for a moonshot to try and reverse what's going on and move us to a higher level of consciousness. That's the most positive thing I can, cautiously optimistic that our species is not as dumb as it looks right now.
Yeah.
We are the victims of our own evolution of mind, and the way that our minds work is taking us off the deep end. We're going to have to, maybe with machine assistance, figure out how to be a better steward of the planet. Anyway,
Well, are
okay.
machines helping us? Are they helping our minds? They're not helping mine.
Well, that's, they
The
could.
tighter and tighter social feedback loops, all this machine text is really changing people. I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, the product, I'll just say real quickly, the product that I've been working on for over a decade is something that enables an individual or a group to combine pieces of information from multiple online sources to produce something of value, especially a creative synthesis leading to a new idea.
Do you have a
And
link?
I do, it's highlighter.com, but you have to put the whole, if you, let's see, do I have your email address? Because I could,
we can put it in the
oh,
chat.
let me put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat. Oops. Okay. There it is. Back to you, Frode.
Yeah, what you're saying with Moonshot and so on, this is one of the many books on paper and so on I've been reading. I'm sure you've seen it. There's a beautiful and annoying bit in there on how paper came from the Chinese and the Arabs used it for a long time, and they were trying to sell it to the Europeans. But the Europeans were not interested until they started, or rather we started adopting the Arabic sciences and going back and learning what they had from the Greeks. So the only reason paper became successful in Europe after having been available for hundreds of years was it solved a specific problem. And as a software developer, I keep hearing from people, you have to find the pain point, I'm sure you hear exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
So talking about the situation we're in now, I don't think the mentality of humans is such that we understand large, diffuse, tomorrow pain points, but I am desperately trying to find out what are the pain points of today that are related especially for textual interactions. And there's of course fake news, but I'm focused on documents. I think documents are important. And so far I'm coming up short.
Well, so here's an interesting area of research that I came across on the biological immune system. And in our evolution, we evolved a behavioral immune system and a psychological immune system. to protect our biological immune system. So what we're seeing on a mass scale is how the mind works to avoid stress, psychological stress. So this whole denial of global ecocide that's going on, and all the other ways that people live in these reality distortion fields, there is a very strong element of the immune system at work. Like if I don't have to deal, I mean, I have neighbors with PhDs in sociology, and they will not talk about climate catastrophe. They have 3 kids, and they'll say, I don't want to hear that. Because if you have to embrace that, it's so stressful. So you just imagine, and they have very reflective and deep thinking people. So people, on the average person, your mind is going to protect you from having, so that's partly what we're up against, right? And it's only going to take, we need major threats to snap people out of that kind of protective cocoon.
A major and immediate threat, and understandable threat.
Right. Well, California is having that right now in America today on a scale that's mind-blowing. I'm in Gloucester, Mass, 3,000 miles away, and the sky is gray from smoke from California. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
Hey, but we don't know.
Yeah.
It could be this severity of the problem is this, the scale of the opportunity as well.
So you're saying that it's beyond our
No,
capacity?
it is. It absolutely requires us to participate. If there is a trillion tons of carbon in the air that we have lit up and polluted the atmosphere with, that's 100. That's 100. Wait a second, I forgot the math. It's about 100 tons of carbon per human.
Yeah, geez. Right.
Which could be viewed as a superabundance because you can make material, you can grow like crazy.
Right.
Specifically kelp, if you look up online, there's kelp grows really fast, eats a lot of carbon, has fuel, food, all kinds of uses. We could be aimed for a superabundant period.
Right.
We don't know.
Well, it's funny you say that, getting back, Frode, to your thing about text, and this is something Dave Boyer pointed out, is when you start tapping into the internet, the storehouse of human knowledge, not all of the disinformation, but with, the content of human thinking that has been, relatively vetted and isn't just people trying to manipulate other people. There is unlimited abundance for creative opportunities and innovation and new ideas, new gadgets, new solutions. There's no shortage. It's unlimited. It's as unlimited as our long-term memory is infinite as well. So there is an analogy to the world of ideas. There isn't any reason that I have to, compete with you for ideas because there's so many directions to go in. It's just a question of how do we tap into all that information, connect it to current knowledge to build new ideas and innovations. And just the other, positive thing is I get MIT Technology Review magazine. It's a very optimistic view of the world. There's a guy who is developing technology that produces energy from solar panels at night by tapping into the sort of radiation from the outer space, right? And there's just, one technology after another that's in the pipeline that could, not any one technology by itself, but taken together with all the innovation and creativity that's out there, we could find our way to a solution. But as the problem is, the technology isn't the solution. It's how people come together to implement the technology for solving problems. And that many of these problems are wicked problems where there's no right answer. There's just goodness of fit depending on the values and the priorities of the decision makers. And that's where we have a big problem when the world is being run by basically corporate sociopaths.
Yeah,
Not their fault, they're a system of sociopathic decision making.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bit far out of the kind of topic here. I will highly recommend a book called The Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
It's astounding. It explains how a group in America, the Appalachians, basically poor Scottish, Irish immigrants, have so much political power now because they don't give a shit. It's really awful situation, but because of the democratic voting system is as it should be, you know, they are not the kind of people who will say, hey, where's that computer? I want to learn and figure out stuff. They're the ones who say, I'm really angry. I'm going to use Trump for that. So I think that's kind of far outside of discussions here. There are some
Sorry
California.
about that.
No,
Well-
that's okay. I'm saying I've been part of so many discussion groups with wonderful people on that topic. So I think it's kind of covered. I mean, all I'm trying to do is somebody who is reading something or is writing something and has a spark of curiosity to support them to hopefully learn something more. That's it.
Yeah.
Because also my background is I'm Norwegian. In Norway, we have bad politicians. Oh my God, we do. But we have a structure, a scaffold that's different. So a lot of stuff that can happen. I remember when I was studying in Syracuse in New York, and from my balcony window, I could see police cars running red lights for the fun of it. Not chasing anyone, cruising through. And I was like, this is a country. You know, Norway has its own corruption. Of course it does. But you wouldn't have a European police car at night just cruising through, trying to show how cool, well, okay, Britain is having problems at the moment. They come out down to structures, and that's a whole massive discussion, you know, how people are allowed to act. But anyway, you know, we got to support people who put a pencil to their temple and connect it to their brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a Hamilton quote. Have you guys still not seen it?
Yeah. No, I have to. I will. I promise. I'll make a note to myself.
I'm desperately trying to get Lynn to write a piece for the book. That would be amazing.
So I have a very good contact friend from Norway, Eilif Tronsden, who's a kind of a leader in educational technology. He'd probably be very interested in what you're up to as well. So maybe at some point I'll make an introduction.
Yeah.
He's quite a guy too, and be quite interested in the problem you're addressing. He's very well connected in Norway. Yeah.
Sounds very good.
Yeah.
So Gunther, you are studying or are you building?
I hope to do both, but mainly studying because yeah, there's a lot to know about hypertext systems, and of course also about programming. But mainly, yeah, mainly studying, experimenting, and I hope at some point I will get to actually building. But I have this requirement that if I'm going to build something, then it has to be qualitatively better than most stuff that is being done, and yeah. So I'm trying my best, but still there are lots of moving parts. So I wouldn't know even where to begin. But it should be at the end a kind of an operating system, and that requires lots of resources. And yeah, and so I've on this project for many years already, and I hope that at some point there will be we have come to a better design, which should perhaps also enable us to experiment more quickly with hypertext design. Because the problem is that, I mean, there are many ideas surrounding hypertext, many realizations, and already it's a problem navigating through all these this huge network of publications, and you have to do a lot of reconstruction. That's why I really want to try out highlighter. But another thing is that at some point you have to try out the ideas, and because you see it's Ted Nelson has some very interesting hypertext concepts, and but getting familiar with these concepts, I mean, yeah, that also requires some kind of prototyping at some point in your, I mean, in your document. Perhaps you want to engage more deeply with the ideas that are presented, so that you actually can try them out to gain a deeper understanding. But yeah, I guess these are very tough requirements. But the way I see it is that yeah, at some point you have to do modeling, and I just am trying to lift a bit the layer of abstraction so that you can communicate more freely to a machine, because right now it's programming is and will perhaps always be, but it's quite tedious because with all this there's a lot of stuff around and a lot of stuff that you can use, but it's the integration which is such a tough problem. And so yeah, I'm trying to address these issues, which might be a bit too much, but the way I see it is that the problems are interconnected and interrelated in a way such that you have to see it and address the big picture. And yeah, so I hope that that sounds reasonable, or that you understand what I'm trying to say.
I just have two quick comments, Gunther. One is, for me, going down the path you're headed without also tying into learning sciences and neuroscience, you're going to end up out there disconnected, because a lot of hypertext is also about making changes inside the brain as you travel wherever you're going. And my view of a lot of the initiatives is they lack learning science, and they have no concept of what's going on inside the brain. So that's the other thing I would say is there are people, and I'll share a link to Chris North's work at VTU, where they are developing AI systems where just plain folks can use them to do pretty amazing things with just, moving little levers and things that are very intuitive and easy. So there's, it isn't as if there aren't groups of people working on, insulating the user from the underlying complexity of the system. There are a number of initiatives. It's not as wide as the mainstream, but there are paths off of the mainstream. I can show you, I have a demo that Chris did for us that's just 15 minutes. And I think you'll see, wow, that's something that would be very accessible to just plain folks, and you can interact with the machine in ways that are very, very simple to do. You don't need it to be a data scientist or a computer programmer.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly useful. Should I give you my email address or
yeah, let's see. I might be able to just post the link too, if I can.
Oh yeah,
Quickly.
Here it is.
So Gunther, when you've done with that, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Just tell me when you've.
Yeah.
It's basically the same
Okay,
question last week or this Monday, which is
yeah.
what process do you want to support with the hypertext? The reason, let me just, I know it's a bit obvious why I'm saying it, but I just saw earlier today a tweet here on by Codex, great guy, and he says, metadata is just data. And of course I argued with him. And the reason I argued is, I spent so many of my early years. Well, first I spent 6 months trying to get information, which was interesting, just my own human. And then working on information systems, it took me a long time to accept that there is no such thing as information in general. There's only ever specific information. So to make a kind of an information system, to me, is utterly meaningless. It has to be information for this or that or whatever. So that's why I'm asking you for your own personal passions. When a person sits down in your hypertext system, what are the things they should be able to accomplish, or what are they supposed to have as a work product at the end of it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, so in fact, well, let's talk about perhaps the issue of navigation. And information is very difficult word. And can you hear me?
That was
Hello? Oh, I think I'm breaking up.
no, it's fine.
Just one, because I have some issues with my internet connection. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. That's fine. So well, the problem is that one difficulty is certainly variety. So let's suppose you want to do some inquiries, and okay, let's all perhaps talk about liquid, where you just want to get to a specific information. And well, the way things are done now is that you essentially have to often the amount of effort that you have to put into getting the specifics that you want is quite arduous. So when you look up, for instance, metadata about a document, so you have one approach, which I think is a really good idea. Right now, you have perhaps services that you can use to access information about the publication, but the problem is that you have to go all through these motions to actually get the result of the presentation that you really want. And part of this, I think, or I want to at least automate, so that the system can present you with meaningful options to interact with something such as a document. But it might be, in fact, any multimedia object that you can think of. And because the way I see it, because when you're doing authoring, for instance, that's also an issue. And you want to draw some sketches, for instance, you're confronted with just too many choices, too many applications that you have to use, and I just want to have a coherent interface, or environment, which would give you the tools, or anticipate even the tools that you need to manipulate an artifact, for instance. So this is in general perhaps the creative process that I want to support. But this again requires some quite fundamental changes to the way things are being done right now. And I think it also is also has requirements on the programming languages and the tools that we use. And so this is something that I'm working on. I mean, I could give you a more concrete example if that helps, but I hope I could convey the general idea.
I wouldn't mind some more concrete example.
Yeah, well, I just have to start my screen sharing. I hope that, so, okay, let's screen I'm interested in. So here's highlighted. So let's, for instance, what have you here? Well, you have these many kinds of services. I don't know if you know the DeepNP. It's quite a nice library in which you can even view statistics on publication activities and which might be relevant. I find it a bit dizzying. And what it also has is an API. And so, for instance, you could search for some specifics. Sorry, this it doesn't seem to work right now. I think I've bookmarked this, but anyway. And this is the information, for instance, that you get about if I look about the future of transclusion. So here's already, you also have the DOI, which is kind of interesting because with that identifier, you can perhaps figure out more information about this specific object. But at some point, I mean, you've got to build something and you have to interact with this service. And here already there is one kind of problem. So there is this a specific, specific encoding. So you have to drill down actually through this structure to get to the information that that you really want. For instance, maybe I'm just interested in the year of publication. And actually, if we think about how we interact with this thing, then you could have, for instance, you really don't, unless you want to somehow analyze the search results, you really don't want to be exposed to this kind of information. You just want to say, hey, please, I know there is future of transclusion, this is a publication, please just give me perhaps the authors, the pages, and perhaps the year. And the system would then figure out how to actually navigate to this information, because here you see I'm doing this drilling down, and this, for instance, can be automated. And the bigger issue is that whatever you're working on and whatever you're given, there are always variations. I mean, there are hundreds, I don't know, too many variations to even represent the search result of a metadata inquiry. And you don't want to be exposed to this, and especially the programmer shouldn't be really, shouldn't care as much about these things. And in fact, in software engineering, you have many of these nested structures and hard-coded paths essentially that the system should infer. I might even ask, hey, give me the abstract. And as you see here, there is no abstract. But there might be other services that that can be used, such as Google Scholar, to give you that abstract. Or even on my computer system, there might be a PDF with the title of the future of transclusion. And then the system would also know, hey, well, that's a PDF, and well, there are other services or processes that can actually digest the information in PDF and could give me the abstract. But all of this should be ideally automated, such that I just specify what I want, and the system figures out from the information that's already there how to get to this information. And I've been thinking about how one could implement this. And so, because also there's another requirement, you want to have some explanations on what's happening. So if something doesn't work, or maybe if you get the result, you want to know how exactly was the information obtained, which processes were involved. And so these are all the.
So in which situations would a user do this? Obviously, you know, with my own PhD work, I'm very familiar with the drudgery of citations. So how would this enter a normal academic user's flow?
Well, I could think of multiple ways. I mean, you could even go for a natural language interface where I just say, hey, again, who's the author of the future of transfusion? But it could be also used, for instance, if you talked about copy and pasting DOIs. So actually it should be recognized, well, I'm not really interested in the digital object identifier. It's a concept representing a document. And I just, for instance, want to have a link. Or maybe I want to see the publication. So it could be also used to augment or to link the information that is that is already present in a document, so that it can be enriched with additional metadata. So on the one hand, it can be used to if you look at an artifact, to have automated annotations even, or it can be used in an inquiry style, where you just interact verbally perhaps with a computer system, or you might type in even queries like such that you do with when you're issuing a Google search, for instance. But the thing is that the process should be open, it should be explainable, and what also should be, it should also grow, because lots of people work on different parts of on how to obtain information, lots of services, and you really want to have a system that can accumulate or can discover new ways to infer infer relations, and in an as automatic fashion as possible, because you really don't want to have to manually integrate all this stuff, which at some point perhaps must be done. But because imagine that for instance, this service is not accessible, but there is another backup, for instance, and so these things should organize themselves. You don't want any hardware dependencies anywhere. So that's perhaps the engineering part of it. And in fact, actually, I'm working on a model which in which I'm trying out this idea in so that I have at least a mathematical model or a tangible model of what how this might be accomplished. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It's definitely an interesting part of the process.
Yeah. So it's one part.
Yeah, we use the DOI a little bit for, as you heard earlier, to resolve it into BibTeX. But we find we get dates wrong. Very often it comes up 2014 when it's earlier. So there are many issues there. How do you deal with that kind of thing?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? The audio quality.
Very strange error when resolving DOI is that it comes up saying 2014, and the date is actually earlier.
So it's breaking up again. Maybe you can type in the question. For some reason, yeah, the audio seems to be breaking up. So, did I type in the question?
Sorry, what? I did, yes, typed it in. It's just a technical detail. It's not.
Like No, I mean, I just I can't find the chat window of the meeting. Yeah, talk about issues of navigation, but for some reason I can't see it, or maybe I've opened the wrong window.
Yeah. But the time is up anyway. I'm afraid I have to go.
I'm really sorry. Yeah.
But I look forward to continuing the dialogue.
So I think roughly the question.
Oh, don't worry about the question.
Yeah.
It was just a little detail. But good to see you guys, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, me too. Maybe you can send me an email with the question,
Yeah.
and I might be able to respond.